Okay, so it's another beautiful summer Sunday afternoon, and there are 12 other people spending it indoors with me, like the nerds that we are. This is the Sunday, July 16th meeting of the Timex Sinclair Online User Group. As we say here in Buffalo, it is 716 day. That used to be our single area code. We now have another one, but people get excited about it because, our area code matches the day of the week, and I guess this is the day when we all go eat buffalo wings and beef on black, whatever else we do in Buffalo. We don't have an agenda per se, um, but Jeff Burrell has sent out a couple of his boards to people in the free world, and they may be attempting to break it. I certainly am. I don't know if I'm breaking it, but I'm attempting. Uh, so we'll talk about that a little bit. And Ingo is running off another iteration of his enlarged Timex Sinclair 1000 with a full or size keyboard, um, big enough to hold open a barn door instead of just your regular house door. And then we'll talk about whatever else pops into our heads. Oh, that's right. And we'll talk about the Koala Pad and its connection to the Sinclair computers because it's got this weird history. That's one of my favorite little oddball subjects. But with that, I'm going to open the floor and see if there's anybody that wants to jump in and chat about their own thing.
Well, first off, is there anyone here who's new and hasn't been here before?
Yeah. Do we have anybody new today? I see Bob's back and Mark's back. Mark is joining us from Mark, you're in the Netherlands, right? Okay, cool. Very cool. So it's international. Mission accomplished for the Sunday meeting. Cool. Before we started, Adam and I were talking briefly about the Koala Pad, and Atari had their own version for a program called Atari Artist, and drawing um, their drawing tablet was landscape mode versus the Koala, which is more of a portrait mode. And we both agreed that the Atari drawing tablet was far superior to the Koala tablet. Anyway,
And
um,
honestly, I'm thinking back to when I used them both, and because I didn't have experience with them until the 90s. I
yeah,
don't remember why I thought that though, but I do remember thinking it. Part of it was because of the software, but also I think was it called the Touch tablet on the Atari? Is that what it was called?
I think it was the Atari Touchdown.
Okay, yeah,
I feel like the Atari had a better pen. There was a
yeah,
button
it did.
pen,
Yeah, and it had a
whereas
button on it too.
yep, whereas
Yep.
with the Koala, it had these two buttons at the top, and you had to toggle with them or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to share my screen here because I have up an article somewhere on one of my screens. Here we go. Okay. So in the very first, oh, there it is. In the very first issue of Synkware, oh no, not Synkware, Syntax Z80 magazine, there was this thing mentioned called the Innovision Presto Digitizer. And a guy named David Thornburg, who had both invented this thing and was company president. And there was the suggestion that this was going to be available for the Sinclair ZX80, which you may recall was a great machine, had a fantastic keyboard, had a lot of memory, was really fast, and the graphics resolution was out of this world. Just the match for a drawing tablet. That was the single mention of this thing, and it was never heard from again. But there's a picture, and they had proposed to bring this out for the Atari too. So I found this picture, I think, in an ad somewhere in another magazine. So anyway, Thornburg, he had worked at Palo Alto, um, and this was one of his inventions, right? Right, here's the flyer for the Atari 400 800 with a little picture of this thing, and you couldn't buy it at the time. Anyway, David Thornburg then goes on to found Koala Technologies and produce the Koala Pad. And then, not too many years after that, Zebra designed a analog to digital converter and wrote a program called TechDraw, and there was another couple other programs, sort of paint programs, Zebra Painter, and they offered also some coloring book software for that you could use with your Koala Pad. Looks sort of like this. That's what a Koala Pad looks like on your 2068. So, what was suggested as a future for the Sinclair computers eventually came true about 5 or 6 years later. But I always thought that that was an interesting connection between, the Sinclair world and the rest of the home computing world at the time. And
David, did that earlier example come out that you showed us the picture of the small one?
did it
That
ever come out? I don't think so.
oh,
I don't think so, because the ads that I've seen, well, $50. Yeah, I can't imagine that. But the ads that I've seen, suggest that you can send off for information, but I don't know that you could actually buy one. I've never seen anyone turn up anywhere, and it's so small. Actually, it looks like Alps made a little pad about that same size as a touchpad for the PC, um, instead of a mouse, and that was back in the late '90s, I think. I remember having
didn't
one
they
of
also
those.
have those built into keyboards too? Like in
Yep,
them? Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so they had it built into the keyboard, the Alps keyboards, and then they split that little piece off into its own unit, which was pretty nifty. Um, and then the other thing that I want to tell y'all is I have been really busy digitizing tapes, coming across all sorts of crazy little programs that people wrote. Adam, you had asked at one point, you know, maybe more than once, did anybody have um, user group library tapes? And
Right,
we
exactly.
managed, and in some collection of tapes that I got somehow, uh, we have library tapes from the capital area Timex Sinclair user group, and by capital that means Washington D.C. But the other big user group, relatively speaking, was this one on Long Island called the Long Island Sinclair Timex user group. They just called themselves List, and they every so often there'd be a an update on library tapes that they had put together and what was on the tape and etc. And in one of these tape collections, I came across one that says List Lib 2.2 2068, and it's full of just weird little programs that user group members have written. There's one that it'll give you the position of AMSAT Q10, which was a satellite that the radio amateur, ham radio folks had launched back in I want to say early 80s, because this program was written in 85-ish or so. It draws a picture of the map, it draws a map of the world, and then there's this little tiny dot that flickers, that tells you where the satellite is for any given point in time, I think up to 2000, because it only asks for a 2-digit date a year. um, and then just, like a program for scheduling, recording TV shows. And it doesn't really do anything, except that you type in information, I think, and then it just prints out this reminder that maybe you put next to your TV or on your refrigerator, that says, from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., record channel 11 and get that, that, what was that show that you guys used to watch on WPIX, K-Pow or something like that?
Oh yeah,
Kapow?
TV Pow.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was on, and that was only like 3 minutes or like during the commercials. So
Oh, was it really? Oh, the way you guys
yeah.
talked about it, I assumed it was a full show.
No, no, it wasn't. It was like during the commercials, you'd be watching a cartoon or something, and then they'd break off, and then they'd be like, they'd say, we're going to call somebody, and then they'd call them. So you better be by your phone. And then they'd pick up the phone, and you'd be looking at your TV screen, and you'd say, pow, pow, or pick. And on
Pix.
WPIX, you have to say pix.
Right.
And so pix. And it would either be playing in the early days, it'd be playing. I never saw these, but I've seen them on the internet. I think it was Fairchild Channel F, maybe game.
Yeah. Okay.
And then later it was the Intellivision games.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I never got called. Of course, I think you had to like send off something to them to let you know you were alive, but I never
Wouldn't
did
you?
that.
Yeah, wouldn't you have to tell them, who you are and
Yeah,
why
I think
they should
so.
call you and give them a phone number to call? I want to show. Wait just a sec. Here we go. There's one. I can't find it. I want to show this list of stuff. So, if I go back up a page, it'll say that there's 360 some odd items in here, 200 and some of which are these various Larkin disk images. But things that look like this were converted from tape. Let me make this bigger. How do I make it bigger? Zoom in. There we go. Big print. Perfect.
That's better.
So things that look like this were converted from tapes, right? And there's stuff like, oh crap, that's gonna try to load. I don't want to do that. There's things like this Time Machine, which is compiles basic programs into a little machine language package. If you want to do your taxes, I don't know how adaptable this is to the current tax system, but there is a tax program from 1983.
Well, it does say it's good to 2068.
Good catch.
Versus the one that's good to 1,000. Timegate is a video game, I think, from Quicksilva, but it was converted by Knighted Computing down near Endicott, Binghamton, New York, for the 2068. So it runs that, and Tomahawk both run in native 2068 mode.
So David, are you like the only person who can actually run this software?
No, anybody can. So the beauty of this stuff. All right, so let me just drill in for a second. You can download this entire zip file, right? If you want. You don't have to. I'm gonna go into Tomahawk because I know that I have other stuff in Tomahawk. And so I just clicked through to see what's inside the zip file, and you can actually get to that itself. If you want to run this in an emulator, grab the TAP or TCX file, okay? And those things will load directly into Fuse, the Sorux, most of the Spectrum 2068.
I thought you said earlier that like all this stuff had been converted to run from disk instead.
That's
So
a
it
different
have to be converted.
Yeah, I'll show you what I mean by that
Okay.
in a second. If you want to run it on real hardware, grab the WAV file, okay? And then within here are whoops, is a PDF of the instructions. If you have to have Affinity Publisher, looks like I stuck the publisher version of the instructions in here by accident. There'll be a picture of the cassette sometimes. You can see it's distributed by United Computers. And sometimes the J card. So that's in essence anything that looks like this, where it's the name of the program, roughly its date, where it came from, that sort of thing.
David,
Go ahead.
I was going to ask, how long does it take you to go from tape to all of that stuff that you have in a particular folder? I mean,
well, okay, so
the instructions.
Well, Tomahawk, however long the tape is to play, there's that real time of just playing the tape back, but I can do other things at the same time. Once I get it into a WAV file, there are two tool sets that I use. And one of them is this thing called TZX Tools, which is command line software. It's written in Python, and it can read those WAV files and turn them into, I use the one that's called TZX Wave, and it can turn that into TZX and TAP files. I often use the verbose and progress options just so I can see what's happening and where it's failing. This one's pretty good in terms of converting things into, like, catching all the stuff. And there's often these like weird blocks that it has a hard time with, and you end up with, you know, a 2-byte block or something. It shows up in the Fuse is really good about showing you that kind of stuff. But what I have found even better is this audio to tape program that is part of the Fuse emulator utilities, also command line. It does a great job of converting tapes into taps and WAV files. And when either of those two things fail, Fuse is absolutely amazing. I open the WAV file in Fuse, and 90% of the time, stuff that TZX Wave or audio to tape can't convert, Fuse can pick it up. But then that slows me down, because then I have to export, you know, each program or each code block or whatever as an individual file and then reassemble it. And that's only happened a few times. Where that does happen in particular is with those cats. Here we go, cats library tapes, which often contain a bunch of programs on them. And rather than, you know, having to load the whole tap file, which, you know, is available, there's a tap and TZX versions, you know, available, but that's everything, right? And if you just wanted Space War or Star Trek or any one of these other things that's on here, you can, you know, just go and drill in and get those things. But extracting those sometimes is a one-by-one process. Like that list tape that I was just talking about, neither TZX Wave nor audio to tape was really happy with it, so I've been going through and extracting each of the programs on there individually. Back to your question,
David.
Yeah.
No, can you say more about that? Where you were saying of extracting each of the individual programs.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't quite understand the problem. Is that it was all in one WAV file?
Yeah. But
and then you were having trouble reading the WAV file except with Fuse.
Well,
correct.
So, I don't have my terminal window open. We can come back to this and I'll show you an example. But what happens is TZX Wave loads some libraries. I think it uses lib spectrum or something like that to try to read the WAV file and turn it into a TAP file or TZX file. And there is often on these cassettes, some of these cassettes are really, really noisy. I mean, just, it's astounding to me. You know, I'll start recording tape. I use Audacity, and it shows you the wave. I wonder, I do have, it shows you the wave file, and you can see just how noisy a tape is. And then you know, I'll go and run it through the programs, and the program will pick it up. It'll convert it, you know, and I'll be blown away, because it's, you know, to me, it's like, you know, how did it get this through all of that noise?
David, do you ever use any of Audacity's low pass filters or anything like that?
That's a good
clean
question.
up the file?
So no, I have not done that yet.
Yeah. I don't either, because I like, but in the Astrocade world, I don't have patience for archiving tapes. But the person who does uses a
Yeah.
low pass filter, and pretty much every single file that is recorded, he's able to save by doing that. If you're interested, I can hook you up with him later.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that'd be good. That'd be
yeah.
really good. So Ryan, you know, either the TZX tools or the Fuse utilities, they'll do somewhere between, you know, on a bad tape, they'll do somewhere between a terrible job and get maybe one file out of a tape where I know that there's 5 or 6 files, you know, or up to about 80%. And then I know I can see just by the blocks in Fuse that there's more there. And so that's the part where it's surprising to me that Fuse, which in theory uses the same routines as the audio, you know, audio to tape routine, um, Fuse can recover those things, the emulator itself, better. I mean, it's just really good at reading WAV files, and you know, giving you a list of what's on the tape. And then Fuse also has, but it won't tell you that for tap files and TZX files, there's a browse mode, and it'll show you a little window, a list of what's on the tape. For WAV files, it
Yeah.
doesn't do that. It just says, you know, this is 58 megabytes long.
But I guess my question was more in doing the individual programs. I didn't quite follow what you were saying was maybe tedious about that or something. That,
Oh, sure, cool. Okay, I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. Let me share a different window. All right. So here's Fuse. Unfortunately, it's not showing you the browse window. And why is it? Oh, okay.
it's a
It's
separate
showing
window.
it's showing, what's that?
It's a separate window. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a separate window.
So maybe it's not sharing it.
All right. Well, let me go here, and I'll open this WAV file that I know. List WAV file. Okay. And so this is 7. What is that? 7 megabytes. Okay. I'm going to reset this because I don't remember what its state was. And I usually do this in order to find out what's on the tape. And this is accurate. I mean, this is like an accurate list of all the programs on the tape, and neither TZX nor audio tape to whatever the other program is called was picking up on this. So I end up doing this. I will do, it'll run through again. It just loops back. It's really nice. It's like,
So you're running it at like 2000%. Is that what I'm seeing there?
Oh, it skips ahead a bit. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going
Yeah.
to 20,000.
20,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my hardware doesn't do that.
No, nor does
Yeah.
mine. I think that this may have been the,
Well, not even my my Raspberry Pi has its limits as far as
oh,
the
yes.
speed up factor.
I don't know what this program does other than generates these graphics. I think maybe I'm supposed to plug a joystick in, and that thing in the upper left moves. I don't know. I've not spent much time looking at the code, but then what I have to do here is I have to close the WAV file and save this, and then it generates a cassette with just this one program on it. And unfortunately you can't see the menus here, but then I just go to the tape menu and save this as
Now, I have a question about that. Isn't that a little, I wouldn't say risky, but are you sure to get every single piece of the code that you want to save to the tape?
right. That's
Yeah.
exactly the challenge. Because
Yeah, so I've done that, and yeah, you have to go through, and you know, you'll have to, like, if it's got a loader program, you'll have to stop that and go in there and look for where it's loading code to see if you can get some addresses. So what I've done instead is when you load up that WAV file, and you did a thing to get all the program names, and that's good.
Yep.
But then go back and load into the emulator that header program from the Fort Worth library tape.
Yeah.
And let it give you the header information for all of the things. So then you'll have addresses and code links, and or if they're data, variable data, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I suppose you could, I don't remember if it does, or you could certainly add it that it echoes that to the printer. And you get a little text file of it. And then that way, when you go back and load each one, you know what region to save for code if it doesn't otherwise tell you.
Uh-huh.
When you're having to do that. Now, obviously, if the TZX tools works, you can have it go and just bam, convert it to a TAP file, and then you can have the other one,
The split.
what it is, just split it out, right?
Yep.
But then the problem is it doesn't always work. And so you're having to do what you're doing, and you want it with individuals.
Yep.
And because it's not reading the WAV file itself, you've got to manually get the code addresses and all that. And I've been through that. And then you got to go back, reload the WAV file,
Yeah.
zoom ahead. Okay, so what I did for that on the Fort Worth tape was I put Fuse in 48K spectrum mode,
Oh.
and then mounted up micro drive.
Oh.
Then you load the WAV file, go through load one thing, and then save them off to a micro drive. And then just keep plowing through the WAV file, and then you'll fill up your micro drive after a certain point.
Yeah,
and you save it off. Then you go back through the micro drive files and pull them off. Makes it a little easier so that you don't have to keep rewinding that WAV file.
Well, I don't even bother rewinding. I just let it loop through. But let me show you something that was really prevalent at the time. And that is, if you look at line 9960 of this program, it'll save the program, and then it saves its code file that it loaded as well. And this was really
yeah, many of them will do that.
Yep, many of them will have that built into them, which makes life real easy. And then the other thing that I came across just the other day was, let's see, this one, but is it this? Nope. This is a good, I'll talk about that in a sec. This page, and I'll put this link in the chat. This website is, as it says down in the right-hand corner, it says it runs offline. You can upload, well, actually, okay, so there's, let me just grab a TAP file. Let's see if I've got, here we do this random colors one, whatever that is. Okay, so you can upload a TAP file, and then you can look at the header and see. So if it's a code file, it would say, let's say it'll tell you, the ID, exactly. The ID will be different. 0 is a program, 1 is code, 2 is something else, and 3 is something else. I don't remember off the top of my head. But there are a couple things. There's the actual length of the data that's going to come next in the next chunk, which is right there. And then this, when it's a program, this first parameter is the place in memory where it's going to load. In this case, at exactly sort of halfway through RAM at 8,000. And then this 212, if I recall correctly, I think on a program, this is how long the program is. But when it's
Start of variables, David.
oh, that's right, start of variables. Okay. And with a code block, those numbers are where it starts, and you already know how long it is, so you can extract that from a tape. I haven't had to resort to that yet, just because so many of the programs that folks have put on these tapes, they've put in a little thing at the end to make it easier for copying at user group meetings. I think I think that's the whole goal of that extra line at the end.
So David, I have a question about the labels of the tapes, but not, I guess not the tape labels, the inlays for the cassettes.
Yeah.
Do they have like the written, like a handwritten account of what's on the tapes, or you're just going blind?
Well, sometimes there's this tiny little scrawl of somebody's handwriting that's almost impossible to read, and they write in a way that makes sense to them. It'll be like 1-11, and then it'll say something ridiculous, and what they're talking about, or what they're writing down, is the counter number on their tape player, which has no meaning for anybody else because it's their tape player. I'm looking to see if I have one handy that has this handwriting on it. No, I don't. Okay. You know, there are so few tapes where there's a listing of what's on the tape, on the J card or whatever. So it's like you said, I'm just going blind. I load it up, I see what's there.
God bless you.
And there's all kinds of weird surprises. All kinds of weird surprises. Oh, hey, yeah, you used David's article on how to use MScript.
Well, it was a command summary, so I don't need. I guess I could talk about it for a second since you're asked.
Yeah.
But since I see him there, I thought, hey, David, other David Solly, cheers. I have been messing around with this, which is the video board, Jeff's video board, who's also here, obviously, and I think he might talk about it briefly.
Yeah.
But I wanted to test out a couple things, and David and I are both testing it. And Jeff, is anyone else testing it?
No, I just sent out 2 boards.
Oh, okay. Well, so I wanted to try the 68 column mode to see how it looked through the VGA, and I thought a good program to use would be MScript. And since I cannot find the manual anywhere, which doesn't mean it's not archived, I just can't find it. I had to resort to using David Solly's command summary, and without it, I couldn't have used it because it's totally foreign to me. Like I can't even use backspace to delete a previous character.
Mhm.
Oh, David says it's not archived. How
Well,
interesting.
so I meant to email you this the other day. I think it was in a box that Paul sent me, and so the manual, until 3 weeks ago, as far as I was aware, did not exist.
Oh, but you have it now in your
So
possession?
I have it. Yes, I have it in my filthy
Oh.
little hands, and it will be archived
Cool.
soon.
Cool. Yeah. But it's been interesting messing around with a program that uses that, and I've used it before when I was trying out the RGB board. But it's I actually think you get a different little picture from Jeff's board compared to the RGB. I think they're comparable, but not exactly the same.
Yeah.
And I want to do a side-by-side comparison, like by running two 2068s, just for the heck of it, see if I'm crazy or not, which I am, but we'll see how crazy.
Never, don't let that stop you. Yeah, as a matter of fact, so you had asked the question, I think, on the list of, did people use this stuff, right? And if you go to the page for MScript, the product on my website, you'll see just scads of articles. And if you just
Yeah,
search for
that's how I
MScript on my
found
website,
David
you'll find
Solly's article.
scads of articles, right? The other popular one was TazWord, which was converted. There was 2 versions, Spectrum version, and then somebody converted it for the 2068 as well, and so that was pretty popular.
Was MScript originally for the 2068, or was it?
Yeah.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yeah. MScript and MTerm were written by this company down in Florida, and before, and I think I kind of get the impression that Timex, sort of contracted to have these things written. And then, before they could come out, Timex decided that they'd spent enough money on this project.
That makes sense, actually, yeah.
And so MScript ended up being released separately, Microsystems software in Boca Raton. And as it turns out, MScript ended up being ported to the IBM as well. So there's somewhere floating out there is a IBM, DOS version.
Never heard of IBM before. Is that like a computer manufacturer?
They're a little, computer company in rural New York somewhere. I guess some people buy them. I don't know why.
Well,
Not nearly as
we
Go ahead.
if I have can I have the floor for just a moment?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because like yesterday, I had some family come. So yesterday, I made a little list of some of the topics that have been coming up lately on the board, and so I was hoping if anyone who like posted to these topics or started these topics wanted to talk. I don't know if who's here or who's not, but some of the topics I brought up were David Ellis posted about a Windows program, the 2068, that somehow makes I don't really know. I haven't investigated it, but if anyone wants to talk about that. I was wondering, since we're talking about word processors, who used what word processors? How did you use them? What kind of printers did you use? Let's see, Michael, excuse me, sorry about that. Michael was talking about getting his 2040 printer and the schematics for it. And I guess he found out some of the schematics have errors, if I'm not mistaken. We have a pretty long thread on Text Adventures, which is kind of, I had a lot of fun in there. And I guess that brings us back because one of the programs that David was able to archive was called Death Castle, which was written and by someone who was 15 or so years old, and it would be lost, I think, if David hadn't have archived it recently. David also talked about okay, David's going to have to explain this to me, or us, I guess. I looked it up and I didn't understand, but it's called like Moon Unit Calling Thin Muffin, like
yeah, and I wish
Zebra's
Stuart was here.
greeting card program. So maybe you can explain what that is. I have some more things I wanted to mention, but what the heck is that about?
So I am just as baffled by it as you are. All right, so Zebra Systems put out programs that were similar to what was that program called? Print Shop, for the Apple and stuff. You
Oh
could
yeah, sure.
design, long banner signs and little greeting cards and whatnot. So they put out a program called Sign Designer and another, I think it was called Greeting Card Designer. Worked the same way. You could load these little, icon images and stuff. But when you run either program and you get to the screen where you can enter what you want the thing to say, it has this pre-filled in text that says, Moon Unit calling. And so I was like, what is this? And at first I thought it was just a weird error, right? But then when I saw it in the other program, I was like, oh, this is intentional. And so I Googled it, all right? Well, for those of us who remember the 80s, there was a song called Valley Girl by Moon Unit Zappa. Actually, it was actually a Frank Zappa song, but his daughter sang on it. And, it was an amusing song. So
will you sing it for us? Because I don't recognize it.
You don't remember?
No, I don't.
Oh,
you don't. Please don't sing it for us.
Adam, you have not lived until you have.
I remember the "Don't Step on the Yellow Snow" song. I remember that one.
That right,
Yeah.
right, yeah. So I googled the phrase, right, and the only place it shows up on the internet is some Instagram thing or something. But it turns out that the other person's name in that bit of text is one of Frank Zappa's other children. And that was news to me because until now I thought Frank Zappa had only Moon Unit and Dweezil, but apparently there's a third child with an equally ridiculous name. And so it said to me that somebody at Zebra, and I'm going to guess maybe Stuart or maybe Jeff Street, was a Frank Zappa fan and put this little bit of Easter egg into the program, which I can't imagine anybody calling up Zebra and saying, what is this? Back in 1986. You want to talk about your board? And then we discovered a bug.
It wasn't a bug. It was just an unanticipated feature.
Right, there you go.
So at any rate, I don't know if I've introduced this before, but this is the version of my video board that David had recommended. He wanted to be a little bit smaller. So finished that up, checked it out. What's that?
Show the original, the larger size if you have it.
So I guess the small one is the fun size.
Yeah, the Snickers fun size.
And then that's the original
Consider
that
it.
I'd sent out to David. So it's
a 30% reduction.
a little smaller.
Yeah. Yeah.
The board is designed to snoop the Timex bus, and it intercepts all of the memory reads and writes to the video area for and the IO ports that control the video. So essentially, it does that, writes it into all that into onboard RAM, and then regenerates the video signal. So you have a VGA compatible output on, in this case, on one of the two outputs. And it will work in all of the standard Timex modes. There's a high-res graphics mode that is 128 by 192. I'm sorry, 256 by 192. Then there's an onboard text mode video generator, so that you can essentially write out to one port and it will output an 80 column video display. And then there are two additional modes in the Timex graphics mode. One of them uses both of these modes use both display files, but one of them sets it up so that you can have a 16 color 128 by 192 graphics display. And then there's a final mode that allows you to have a 4-color 256 by 192 graphics display as well. So I expect those are just for people who want to play around with things. But this came out of the fact that my Timex video output is, shall we say, somewhat deficient. And so that this board was designed to provide some better video output.
I took a photo of the output from your board.
Is that not bright a comment on me?
Absolutely.
If so, I'm not complaining. I'm happy for the for the publicity.
It's not wrong.
That's right.
So okay, there we go. Now I can get my controls back. There we go. Cool. And so the thing that really amazed me was I have a couple 2068s, and my my daily driver, as it were, is I thought that it was having a problem reading stuff, playbacks from tape. I couldn't get stuff to load from my computer or from the 2020 cassette player. So I had to type in a program. This is the program, the Genius program that I typed in to do the testing. So I went and grabbed a couple other 2068s that I have, one of which belonged to a guy named Eric Johnson, and I don't know what the other one came from, but I hooked yours up to Eric Johnson's 2068 and it didn't work. All I got was a black square. And so, but I think that that's related to his oddball thing. He had, at the very least, changed the message that appears at the bottom of the screen to say property of Eric Johnson. It's the only way I know it's his confusing. So there's, and I opened it up and there's some other stuff going on inside. So, I plugged in this machine and put your board on it and it looks great, right? This is what the output of Jeff's board looks like on this machine. This is what the composite output of that machine looks like. Clearly there's something wrong with the computer. I don't know what's wrong with the computer, And I'm not gonna try to find out, and I'll show you why I'm not gonna try to find out, because this is the circuit board for the computer. And if you can see, I'll zoom in. It's got a ceramic, oh shoot, that's not what I wanted. It's got a ceramic ROM chip with a August 15th, 1983 date code. I have not looked at these numbers to see how they match up to the production numbers. The other thing that it has that's kind of interesting to me is this is the XROM chip over here, the one that's labeled U20. And I immediately recognized, it's kind of hard to see it, but that's the Hitachi logo, that little circly bullseye thing. And not a lot of 2068s used Hitachi XROMs. I think it's another producer, another company that they used. But this white ceramic main ROM, that's, you know, the ceramic chip. I don't know how much folks know about chip production, but you know, early runs of chips, small production runs, they'll do it in ceramic like that. And it's not until it's completely solidified that they do the plastic ones. And I don't know who wrote and put this sticker on here that says initizes. I think it means initializes, but it just says initizes. I don't even know what this board is. You know, I mean, it's got some stuff on it that I don't recognize. Like there's some up in the upper right hand corner where the circuit board connector is. There's a couple outlines for capacitors that I don't immediately recognize. But you know, looking at the serial number, it's like this doesn't look like a pre-production serial number. And the chips, aside from those ROMs, are not socketed, and everything else looks kind of normal. You know, these big wires, those are power bus jumpers. So I don't know what's up with this board, except that with Jeff's hardware, it puts out a decent signal. By itself, it's terrible, unusable.
Hello, David. This is Gustavo.
Hi,
How are you?
Gustavo. Good.
Question: what is the last letter of the board?
D.
If you see the stamp and the low part,
Yeah,
low right part, I could detect Timex send release A, B, or whatever. This is maybe D.
it's a D. Yeah, yeah.
Huh,
So
it's not the first release.
no. And you know, so and to add sort of to the mixery, as it were, Eric Johnson, who this probably came from, Eric Johnson had a relative who worked at Timex in Middlebury, and when Timex shut down, the story I've been told is his uncle said, "Hey, I got all kinds of stuff. Do you want it?" And Eric's like, "Sure, you know, I'm a big 2068 person." And so all kinds of stuff just got sent to Eric, right? And Neil Cohen told me that his garage looked like, you know, a electronic hobbyist's garage might look, packed full of what other folks might call junk, but what we call treasure.
No, regarding the hardware, I see this week an email regarding the value of a resistor.
yeah.
Maybe it's wrong relating the documentation. I remember, I don't know, 20 years ago, I got a tester and also test all the resistor for the board.
Mhm.
And I detect problems behind, if you compare the blue book, the Timex blue book with the circuit and the back part,
Yep.
with the SAMS version.
Yes.
And also included with the original release version. Does not match.
Yeah, right. So the question came up that somebody wanted to convert their they wanted to put a switch into their 2068, and they were going to use the video modulated video output and started ripping out all the hardware, all the parts. And then after that, remembered that some of those parts were required for composite video generation. And so he had to put them back in. And as Gustavo is saying, and as I think it was Brett who said this, the schematic is not 100% accurate. And the schematic suggested that the particular resistor was going to be like a 510 kilo ohm resistor. And Sam's computer facts book actually has the right value. And that's because Sam's made these books for, TV repair people, basically. And you could, there was a point in time when you could take your Timex Sinclair to some guy, who ran his own TV repair place. And if he had the book, he could fix it for you, and so Sam's would buy a physical product and tear it apart and document all of the stuff. And the really cool thing that they would do for you is they'd tell you what a signal looked like. We'd have a little picture of of what the oscilloscope showed at a particular spot on the circuit board. So you could, do your probe and see, yes, what I got matches what's in the book. So, at least that works, right? But yeah. Lesson to anybody who wants to do anything to their 2068. Don't start ripping parts out of the modulator willy-nilly.
Yes, maybe it's a good idea if we can, in any repository, documented the differentiation of the values between the machine or the schematic, in order to create, maybe in half year or whatever, a real definitive schematic for the Timex.
That sounds like a lot of work.
Well,
Yeah.
am I right then that the Sam's computer facts book is the correct one?
No.
Oh, it's not right?
Has error too.
Oh.
I would lean on the Sam's computer fact book. It's far more accurate than the.
It's more accurate, but it's not the real. I don't know if, for example, in my version of the Timex, maybe some resistor was changed, on the fly. I don't know, but exist minor documented errors. I don't remember if 4 or 5 errors, but really it's more accurate the Sam's version, but it's not the definitive version.
Yeah, and I don't think they're aside from doing a lot of work, blueprinting the circuit board, which is not me. Maybe wants to step up and do that, more power to you, but that looks just like months of work, in my opinion.
Oh no, maybe with the list of the component, because the component is 100 maybe or 150.
True.
To get the list, and also if any technician or for repair propose, check the value with this table, and that's it. It's see if they're correct or not.
Well, you know what I think we would find, Gustavo, is that there would probably be some variations between machines.
Yeah. I assume
especially
that.
especially at the resistor level, where
Right.
just a minor tweak and just to improve something.
Yes, that is the point. Yes, correct. I have limited version of the 2068. I have 3 different, but not 100.
Yeah. Very cool. David, Solly, we haven't seen you in a while. How are things in your neck of the woods? How's your Timexing going?
Well, I haven't been doing too much Timex stuff. One of the big problems is I don't have ZX. What am I trying to say? I don't have a Spectrum emulator chip anymore, and I've been trying to get one, and either the chip takes up the space for the Larkin controller board, or which means I can't take things from the Larkin disk and run the Spectrum version at the same time. The original Spectrum emulator I had fit on
on the
a
large
board that you could shuttle between the two formats, the Timex Sinclair and the Spectrum.
Yeah, yeah.
So
and it's not, I mean, I came across some documentation about that recently, and it's not super clear to me. I mean, it talks about how you modify it to support a Spectrum ROM, but the instructions were not awesome. Let's put it that way.
well, maybe if I try harder, I might still have that internal board, and
Oh.
I could send it to somebody who has maybe a little bit more experience than I do in putting these things together, and
Yeah.
kind of back engineer it,
Back engine, yeah, right. Reverse engineer.
reverse engineer it.
Sorry, for what is your necessary change for the call, or what is it?
No, so Gustavo, the Larkin DOS cartridge has two sockets on it, one for the Larkin DOS, and then the other socket could be a Spectrum ROM, it can be OS 64 or anything else that's on a ROM. But when it comes to being a Spectrum ROM, Larkin issued, had some very specific instructions. You have to move a wire and solder in a little switch. And if I remember correctly from talking to David a while back, the wire fell off. And so it's not clear where it connected. So David wants to get his little thingy repaired. That's
I remember
the instructions are not great.
Larkin use input-output ports. Maybe with a special port is change the ROM. I don't remember exactly what IO port map has the interface, but maybe use a input-output port to change the ROM.
Given the way the hardware is designed, probably not. I mean, it is a physical switch on the device to switch between the two modes.
Yeah. It's manual switch.
Manual switch. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and a little jumper, and there's a resistor change, and it's yeah. I see somebody who I have seen very active on Facebook, Rui. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing you right. Rui Ribeiro. Rui, are you in Portugal?
Yeah, I am in Portugal. Sorry, I'm a bit busy right now. I won't be talking much.
That's okay.
I just got a black Timex 2068 maybe a couple of months ago. Just repaired it because it had run faulty RAM.
Mhm.
And I occasionally do some assembly programming for it, either in emulation or native modes. I know a bit of the architecture, but I had not machine back then in the day. I had a Timex 2048 at the time. So I know a bit of video modes, but the 2068 cartridge functioning and memory map is new to me. I'm just learning it now.
Just learning it now. You've been posting a lot of programs that you've been writing to do those kinds of tests that clearly, are evidence of your learning. I've seen you post a few to, some of the Timex groups on Facebook.
Yeah. Did some programming of the video modes and some cam testing. I'm getting my feet wet on the difference between the Timex ROM and the Spectrum architecture, actually. It's an interesting machine. We know it didn't have very users at the time, not much software, but it's interesting machine.
Yeah. Ree, since you one of the programs that you wrote does, a lot of testing of the machine itself. And Adam just asked in the chat, are there any ROM differences between the 2048 and the, Adam says Timex 2068. Adam, did you mean Timex Sinclair 2068 or?
Well, I was looking at pictures, and on the picture that I see of it is a black Timex 2068, which I wasn't aware. It's the Timex Computer 2068, but I
Timex
wasn't.
Computer.
Yeah, I
Yep.
wasn't aware that even existed, or I've forgotten about it, I guess.
Actually, the black one was manufactured for Poland, for the Polish market,
Okay,
but then it also has been sold in Portugal.
okay. So the black one was the Unipol Brit 2086.
Before before that one, the Timex TC 2068 was sold in Poland,
Yeah,
and only in 1986 or 7 or whatever it was changed the name for Unipol Brit. When Sinclair was bought by Amstrad, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark's the man for having lots
Just
of
a different
machines.
label, some change inside, some patch inside, but it's the same machine.
Okay. Wow, look at that. That's really sexy.
To us.
To us.
Yeah, exactly. That one,
Very
same
nice.
as mine. Yeah, that
Wow.
I'll send
is
you my
not
address.
manufactured in Portugal. Actually, both are manufactured in Portugal, but then the first one has made some internal change made in Poland.
Oh,
Mark, do you have a 2048 to show?
yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you
That
hack
one
off the
is
cartridge port,
more compatible with the system.
yeah, and that has a power LED, right? Little tiny LED. What does it say underneath your finger, Mark? What is that? I can't quite make it out.
It says TC 2048.
Oh, okay, okay. And so the 2068 I saw had something similar there as well. And these are PAL. Are all of these PAL machines?
Actually, no. This is
Yeah.
a PAL machine, obviously.
Yeah.
I have to say the black ones are much more handsome than
Aren't they?
the silver ones.
I know that looks really good. Oh, that's NTSC. And what?
NTSC from Chile.
Chile. Okay. And that's a 2048 from Chile.
This
Oh,
is
it's
like,
NTSC.
Look at
That one
that.
that one is NTSC. Oh, cool.
Oh, who do I know in Chile? I gotta get one of those.
We're gonna have to go dumpster diving down there.
Oh, that's awesome, Mark. Thank you. Very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you, Reeve, for joining us. Adding to the international factor, which is the whole reason that we're meeting on Sundays at 2. Because in Europe it's evening, right? It's like we think about.
Yeah, I'm just busy with some personal things, doing some accounting, personal accounting, things like that.
Cool, awesome.
it's 8 p.m. in Portugal and 9 p.m. in Europe.
Okay.
8 p.m. here. We are by London time.
London time. Very interesting. Very cool. And Gustavo is in Argentina. So, the only person that we're missing is our friend Tim 2 from New Zealand. who lives in tomorrow. Tim's always ahead of us. Hey, Ingo, I think you said you were back. Yeah, show us Ingo's crazy world.
Yeah. So my brother and I have not quit yet. We're still working on our prototypes, making changes, making adjustments. Let me switch to my iPhone camera. Okay. And
Yeah.
can you guys still hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, I hear you fine.
So one of the biggest changes. So last time you guys saw was the hacked case where I just kind of threw in. Where is it? We've got so many prototypes going. I don't know where they all are. But at any rate, so what we've done is we have now mounted. Let me see if I can unplug the video and unplug the power. So what we've done is we've made a nice little power switch. So we've got an on-off switch back here.
Yeah, you
That's
know,
not
you got
needed.
kicked out of the club for that, right?
Got the power jack here, which is a barrel jack,
Yeah.
standard barrel jack. And then yeah, I've got a red audio. It should be yellow for composite video, but this is all that my electronics store had, so it still works the same, even if it's got red plastic in there instead of yellow. And then so close up, so we've got the back of the power switch. So I'm switching the positive from the
power jack.
9-volt power supply. And then I'm running twisted wires underneath the board here. And then it comes out on the other side. Right now, I've got these temporarily spliced here because I have some other plans for the power in parallel to the supply to the board. But just like before, you can see that there's just a little plug here, so you can unplug the power so that you can, if you do have to pull out the board, you can pull it out. And then when you stick it back in, you just plug this guy back in, snaps right in there. You guys have already seen that we have the Traco switching type regulator. And then what I've done is, because we've got the board so close to the edge of the case, I took the RF modulator completely out, right? So just gutted this guy because it interferes. And I've got a little piece of the insert board. There's a little piece of like a paper insulation board inside the RF modulator, which I just glued onto the bottom of this circuit board for the composite mod, because this is all ground right here. There's a big ground plane. And then I run a twisted pair black and blue wire from here all the way along the edge to the RCA jack.
Yeah.
The board's all screwed down. Keyboard's plugged in here. We've got little right angle headers, so I can disconnect the keyboard very easily.
Is that for the mouse?
I'm sorry?
Is that for the mouse?
Yeah. That's next.
Very good, very good.
Yeah, you guys are laughing now, but wait, we're gonna have a mouse and a trackpad and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, and then we've got the little breakout board that I showed last time.
Yeah.
It's in nice and easy. The expansion board's nicely covered up. That was my brother's idea, instead of showing any open case there. And the latest development is this. That's all scratchy here. I've been sanding this, but this is clear PETG.
Oh.
So let me see if I can grab a flashlight and try to do that.
And you know what? That actually gets, I was going to ask you a question about that.
Sure.
So you used black filament, obviously. And
yes.
One of the things that I have seen pictures of is a clear 2068 case. What would happen if you printed that with clear filament?
So I'm very, very new at the 3D printing scene, and today was my very, very first time printing anything with a clear filament. There's some cloudiness to it.
Okay.
But I've heard that with the right temperature settings and the right extrusion settings, you can get pretty clear. Something like that, though, would probably be better done with a mold.
Yeah.
And then, poured probably. But again, like I said, I'm really green at this, so just starting to get my feet wet. But yeah, so far this is the idea is to get the power coming up. And then what I'd like to do, let's see, where did I put it? Oh yeah, here we go. Got this right now. I was going to start soldering some LEDs, these little tiny red LEDs, and then possibly drill some holes in the bottom here. I'm thinking the final version, if this does work out, will be SMD on a little circuit board that is affixed to the bottom of the cover here. And the idea is when you flip on the power switch, you know, this is your power on indicator.
Ingo, you've got to put 3-color LEDs behind there.
That's correct.
You can
Yeah, there you go.
you can bury a
make it-
little
make-
Raspberry Pi in there, so it'll.
Yeah, actually, or what we could do is dedicate an output port and allow the user to type in a machine language routine to select their color. I know it's doable.
Even better.
That's right. That's right.
And Ingo, the last time you showed us this, the keyboard, I think, kind of dropped into the top case, and you had another
yeah.
piece that was going to be the faceplate around the keys. And
Right.
you
So
might want to move
we're in a little bit. When I printed this out, I realized that I gave my brother some incorrect dimensions. So this does not fit the way it should. Let me get these guys out of the way here real quick. You know, where I gave him certain dimensions, but I didn't give him all the dimensions that I should have given him. And so for that reason, this is not working the way it's supposed to. But I've already figured out where my errors were, and I sent him a new file. So that when the cover pops down, this cover snaps on really nicely on the top here. So that just snaps right in. Right now, we don't have any screws for this yet. Eventually we will. And if it wasn't for the interference here with the keyboard, this thing would be fitting really nice. So the next iteration of this case, we'll have that straightened out. Was that what you were asking about, David?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to ask you and Jeff about is that green, funny-looking thing off to the left.
Yes.
What does that mean?
This funny green little thing. Yeah. So I wanted to share something with you guys. So a couple weeks ago, I went to my local makerspace. Let's see if I can get this without the glare.
Well, isn't that the gear that runs the ZX81?
It is.
That's right.
And that's
It
why
is.
it's so slow. It's 'cause it's missing, you know.
Yeah, when you put this inside, you get turbo boost. No, so this is my local makerspace in Troy, New York. It's the Tech Valley Center of Gravity, and they had a presentation. We actually had this guy. He's like a mad scientist inventor in the toy industry, and he gave a speech or a presentation on prototyping. And it was really interesting. I went with my brother-in-law. This is one of the little goodies that I got from that. It's a little matrix for when you're designing something new to figure out, you know, where all your different ideas are. Because, you know, you get all these different ideas. Ooh, I want to make it do this and I want to make it do that. I'm going to have this feature and that feature and all this stuff. But, you know, it's good to kind of use this as a place to put those ideas, right? So you can figure out from a scale from 1 to 4, if something's less desirable or more desirable on this axis, on the y-axis, and then on the x-axis, you got your feasibility scale, right? How easy or difficult is it going to be to implement the idea? And so if you get stuff that's in this area, that's the stuff you want to focus on, and everything else is going to be on the back burner because it's either not really that desirable or it's not that feasible. And I thought that was really neat because I came there with that question because of all this prototyping that my brother and I have been doing. And, you know, you get all these ideas and after a while, you can get overwhelmed with ideas and then wonder, where do you want to put your time and what do you want to focus on next? So I put these out here so I could share that with you guys.
Well, and Ingo, the reason I asked you about the green thing is it bears a very strong resemblance to the open source hardware logo. I don't
You know what?
Yeah.
And that might be where they got that. So let me see here. I want to change cameras again.
And so I thought maybe you were subtly suggesting that you would be open sourcing this stuff.
I'm thinking that we're going to, no matter what, you know, making the 3D models and plans and stuff available. You know, I'm not planning on capitalizing on this, and it's been a fun experience, and it's not difficult for a lot of people to enjoy the same fun and maybe add to it and come up with other variations and other ideas. Let me see if I can pull up this that meetup.
And while you're doing that, Ingo, so Jeff, the reason I invoked your name in that conversation is that I have seen that same logo on some of the circuit boards that you have designed.
All of my boards are open hardware. And as soon as we get all of the bugs worked out of the video board, I'm going to open that up for either other people to build, or perhaps we can make a limited run available if Ryan will stop playing with my hardware and finding problems. Thank you very much.
That's the whole point of beta testing, isn't it?
No, it's to stroke my ego and say that the hardware is perfect.
It is pretty
The
amazing.
hardware is perfect.
Hey, David, is it okay if I share my screen
Yeah, go
real
ahead.
quick?
Mhm.
So this was the guy right here. He looks like a wizard. I thought he did a great job. Like I said, he works in the toy industry, and Troy Fisher, he gave a really good presentation. He brought some of his toy ideas, and he had some really neat stuff. And he talked about, you know, the evolution of these projects. And now here you can see the logo quite a bit better. So that's the Tech Valley Center of Gravity. Let's see if we can zoom it in a little bit more here.
Very nice.
When you said wizard, I kind of thought more along the lines of Manson family. You
Well,
know what I mean?
you know.
Is it or what?
Yeah.
The
So.
resemblance is strong. Very cool. Mike, how are you making out with your printer? Whose microphone doesn't seem to be working at all. All right, so anyway, Mike kind of toasted his 2040 and asked if there was schematics available, and we found a schematic that had been drawn by a guy named Bob Orfeld back in the 80s. And it's close. I don't remember who commented on some of the things that were off with it. But hopefully Mike will get his 2040 running again. And if not, I think Stuart still has some for sale.
New old stock?
New old stock.
Really?
Old stock from Pennsylvania. The
Oh,
storage
yeah,
unit.
maybe I should buy one just so I can fit into the crowd, you know?
There you go. Mhm. Jeff Coleman, you went to VCF in Dallas, right?
Yes. Yeah, once we found the venue, we got lost 4 times trying to find it. But once we got there, it was nice.
And you posted a picture or two to the group.
Uh,
I think
did I post a picture? What did I post?
I could swear it was you or somebody else posted some pictures to the group. I think it was of the Dallas meeting.
I don't remember seeing those, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
That doesn't mean it didn't happen, right?
I took pictures, but I don't think I've done anything with them yet. It was there was a Sinclair presence. I kind of tried it in for not bringing the Timex stuff. I can't remember the guy's name. He said he's a member of the group, but he doesn't always have time.
All right, I think I'm up.
Oh,
What's that?
sorry. There you are, Mike.
Oh,
We'll come back to you, Jeff, and VCF.
okay.
At least I'm seeing a amplitude on my microphone locally,
We can hear you,
hear
Mike.
you.
Yep.
but now I can't hear
Oh, you can't. He can't hear us. Ah, the wonders of technology.
Now I can't hear David.
You can't hear us at all. Oh darn! All right. Put it in chat and see if he can hear, if he can read chat.
Well, Jeff, in the meantime, maybe you can continue talking there.
Yeah. Tell us
Okay.
about the Sinclair guy.
Okay. I can't remember. I took a picture of his name tag and I've already forgotten it. I didn't realize I was going to speak today. But at least there was a Sinclair presence. He had the Sinclair Spectrums, just because a lot of people stateside aren't familiar with them. So he had, I think he said when COVID hit, maybe, that he had purchased quite a few of the Sinclair Spectrums just to kind of introduce them to the American public. And I can't remember, he had a couple of the different models, and one of them I hadn't even realized it was like a better keyboard. Was it the 128?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, the 128. So he had a lot of the 48 dead skin feel, whatever the little fleshy
Dead
ones
flesh,
were.
they call it.
And then he had the larger one, and so that was kind of interesting. So at least, you know, there was the Sinclair presence. And I mean, I wore my Timex Sinclair 1000 shirt, but I didn't take any of my 2068 stuff. I didn't buy a
Oh, did you have a table?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. You were just talking about a table.
Oh no, yeah, I didn't purchase a table. I just kind of wanted to go scope it out to see what type of vendors would be there or presence. And it was really crowded in the little room. I think they had more of enthusiasm than they expected for the venue. And then they had some old teletypes, like some not ticker tapes, I guess they were, and then teletypes. So it was really noisy in there too. But it was interesting, you know. We didn't really have any speakers, I don't think, for the Timex Sinclair. It was mainly the TRS 80 seemed to be the thrust of the speakers and the presence there. So a lot of TRS 80 type history. There was the IBM, you know, the IBM that Adam wasn't really familiar with. So, you know, if you go to a VCF, you know, maybe you'll kind of learn about the IBM presence.
Okay, yeah. Well,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
That little computer company.
But no, it was really interesting. And I guess about the only tie that I kind of mentioned in the email was the Apollo Guidance Computer presentation, which I really did enjoy. This guy had bought, what was it, a scrapper in Texas, had bought 2 tons of scrap from NASA, and he realized after reaching out to hobbyists and people just trying to figure out what he had purchased, and then I guess somebody had flown in, realized, oh my gosh, this is the guidance computer, you know. And then a couple of the people that he knew that they have reverse engineered some other equipment in the past, got together, got a hotel room, and I don't remember where exactly in Texas it was, but they really tore into it for about 2 weeks and made some real good progress on reverse engineering it and reading the navigation tapes that somewhere they had obtained from another resource or another purchase order from a scrapyard. So, you know, just the fact that, you know, there was so few memory bytes in that Apollo, and then just kind of thinking of the Timex Sinclair, you know, it didn't necessarily run a nuclear power plant, but just the power you could get out of some of these early computers. And they mentioned it was, what was it, a 7-layer board, which they said for that time was like unheard of, to have a 7-layer PCB. And then the core memory was very limited. I don't remember how many bytes offhand. I don't have my notes in front of me. But it was just interesting, you know, just to see what
So
people
Jeff,
can do with
can I ask you a
these.
question about that Apollo board? So if he hadn't have bought that scrap and it had been thrown away, the Apollo computer would have been destroyed?
Well, yeah, the scrapper, you know, because he didn't know what to do with it, and he kind of reached out before scrapping it for metal turn-in or whatever, see if there was something salvageable, you know, and then they bought this, the pieces that they thought that were computer equipment that they could use for reverse engineering and preservation. So, what was it? I think there were 2 computers. I can't remember what the other one is, and I don't remember the status of where they are on it. So what they did is they reverse engineered it and kind of got the preservation, repaired the 2 bytes of core memory that were bad. They wouldn't hold the bits correctly. I mean, sorry, 2 bits. And then, what was it? There were some diodes, I think, that were bad. I think there were 5 hardware problems. And then what these hobbyists do, they kind of get it in working condition, and then they, I don't remember the real famous
If I can jump in here,
auction
Jeff,
house.
if I can jump in,
Oh,
check the Curious Mark website. He has a whole series. I think he's the one who eventually
Yes, he was the
refurbished that.
presenter. Curious Mark is the presenter. Thank
Yeah,
you.
there's a great YouTube series on that.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, so, Jeff, I want to ask you one thing. I came across an old mail because it went to an address that I had forgotten existed. You had mentioned that you have a manual from this weird piece of software called RPNZL. And
Yes, it was one of the things I picked up and didn't know if anybody had an interest in Forth or had the software to go with the manual, because the manual is very detailed with how they implemented the Forth on the ZX81.
so it was a fourth. Okay, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it was the 4th derivative. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Cool.
Cool. All right. Well, let's definitely talk. I've not found that software yet.
Okay, and that would be the other thing. The same way, you know, you found that 64 column source code, and I'm kind of going into remedial Z80 assembler right now to refresh my memory on how to even disassemble the code that you had pulled off a tape, and then move, you know, be able to change the absolute addressing to relative addressing so I can put it in the cartridge. So yeah, I've kind of been just doing that in the meantime, you know, and if we do find something on that RPNZL, I'll kind of look into that more also.
Cool. Cool. Okay. Okay, Mike, seems like Mike might be ready for us. Mike, I'm going to ask you to unmute because you're muted. In Zoom, you're muted.
Of course I'm muted.
Now we can hear you.
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
This was a comedy of errors. My head was still in writing the code into the Timex for the serial board, and I wasn't all here. No, the 2040 printer, it was working just fine. I stopped printing for a minute, then went back, and it wouldn't advance, wouldn't print, nothing. It was dead. Then I checked the output of the power supply, and I had no 28 volts out of the power supply, AC or DC or anything. And I substituted the that for another transformer, and it still wasn't working. So it's toast. I'll troubleshoot it at some point. I'm more concerned with getting the serial port working.
Yeah.
Which I made enough mistakes.
Enough mistakes were made?
Oh, yes.
That's the way of hardware design.
Yes, I know.
In
other words, learning opportunities.
It is not a bad looking board, but you'll notice that in order to get it to fit and clear the top edge of the 2068, I had to use my wire wrap connector and put a little piece of wood in there so that it would stay away from it.
Okay.
You'll also notice that I don't know if you can see it, probably can't see it here, but there are a bunch of patch wires.
Oh, yep. Mm-hmm.
I don't know who designed the interface for the expansion board, but when you mix up your data lines like they did, I would like to wring some necks.
I have to agree with you that the layout of the address and data lines on the expansion connector are a whopping pain if you're trying to design something useful. You have to map them all over the place. It's a challenge.
Well, it worked very slowly driving it with basic code. So I've written a quick and dirty assembly program, and I was in the process of keying that in. I wanted to look so good for you guys, but not done yet.
Mike,
Yes.
there are at least 2 terminal programs for the 2068, and it might not be impossible to do a little reverse engineering on them and edit the machine language code in them to talk to your board. These programs are written for the Timex modem, and so they talk to the port numbers that the Timex modem's on, and that might be a way to find the piece of code and then change it so it works with yours.
A question: what chip using the serial board? What
He's
chip
got
are
the
you installing?
Motorola 6850.
Okay, but the program terminal use 8451.
8251,
yeah.
Yeah, the Intel. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, after all this grief with the serial port design and getting it debugged, whether there's enough interest for me to go ahead and lay out new boards that are correct, and what additional changes need to be made to make it more useful. I mean, is the address range 126 at 127 where you guys want it, or should I put a address decoder on there that lets you decide where you want to put it?
No, correct. But the different is the bit status position in the register, in the status register, and in the command register. Maybe I don't have the specs for Motorola, but that is the main difference between Intel or another UART chips.
There are so many different asynchronous communications adapter chips.
Yep.
That it gets, you have to decide what you want to do. The 6850 will also support CAN bus, so that's something to look at. If we need more than one serial port, we can go to the dual Z80 serial port, but it's just a question of, do we need it? And if we need something like it, what do you want? What do you need? I love to design, debugging not so much.
Well, I'll tell you, I think that there's an interest in, in a modest number of serial boards. There probably is more interest out there than we actually realize. But what it would require is, some decent documentation and driver software. Just because folks, not everyone's comfortable writing machine language stuff.
Correct.
And they want to be able to.
The other side of the coin is writing output on the serial port is no big deal. But if you want to receive information from it, that gets a little more wicked, because you have to use the NMI and patch in a handler and a buffer in memory to handle the information as it comes in.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Mike. Mike, I'm going to jump to another topic, and that is what is the percentage increase when you go from 3 to 4? Adam, do you have a clue?
Larger.
Right. I mean, is it 50%? Is it? I'm not sure.
33%.
Okay. So there's been a 33% increase in the Albuquerque representation with the addition of John Brown. John,
Howdy.
tell us if you plan to commit to being a member of the Albuquerque Timex Sinclair user group.
You mean the one I started 25, 30 years ago?
Yeah, exactly. And it has continued. I mean, Carl's a persistent member.
Yeah, Carl. Well, he's not here today, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good old New Mexico Computer Society up off of, what was that? Chico, I think was the street we used to have a little meeting at. But yeah, I've recently dusted off my ZX80, ZX81 toys that were at my folks' house. And I'll tell you, I learned an awful lot about assembly language on the Z80 processor. That was a lot of fun. Between that and the 6502 from the Apple that we had growing up, I always loved the Z80.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I never really got my head wrapped around this whole page 0, page 1 stuff that the 6500, 6800s had. But that was way back then. Now I don't really care. It's just another processor.
Yeah.
And hearing you guys talk about Forth earlier, all of a sudden my brain went to open proms on Spark or Sun machines, where you used to be able to program sort of the boot up of a Sun, which had a little mini Forth interpreter in there as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of interesting. Adam called my old work and left a message, and I got a call from them, and I'm like, so let's see, is this spammy? Is this scammy? But wait a minute.
It's a little bit weird, right? You know,
it's both.
Sinclair. What was that, Adam?
It is a little bit weird, yeah. To get that, I sort of was leaving a message in a void, and the person I think I left it, and then you called me. And you're like, basically, who the hell is this? And in a polite way, but and I was like, okay, do you know Dan Tanberg? And for the group, I don't know, many meetings ago back, another local Albuquerque user wrote some software here in Albuquerque that I archived, and he told me, hey, you should contact John. So that's what I did. And he's local. In fact, he lives right next to Ryan and I, as far as I know. And yeah, so.
Yeah, Dan Tanberg and I was in high school, and Dan was the head of emergency medicine at the University of New Mexico. And they were having a heck of a problem in the mid 80s triaging incoming patients. And so Dan, I'd say 98% of it, and a little bit of me poking around a bit and helping them. But we took some TS-2068s and put them in the ER and used them as an inbound triage and scheduling tracker for patients. And Dan wrote a ton of software for that, to do that. And that system, I think, ran for a couple of years. It was really quite interesting. You know, and when the machines got GUI'd up, they just pulled the machine and put another one in, and off we went. So that was kind of fun. But I guess maybe to give a quick sort of history of me and Sinclair and computers and whatever.
Yes, please.
So I'm 55 years old, and or young, or however that might be in this group. I was born in the Canal Zone. Raise your hand if you know what the Canal Zone is.
Panama.
Awesome.
Right.
Good. United States territory. My dad was a civil servant, worked for law enforcement down there. My mom was a school teacher. 1976, I went to a computer fair at the high school, and I was in 4th grade then, and got introduced to a Hewlett Packard something or other, but was quickly picking up BASIC. And the next thing I knew, I was using the high school's Mini, which was a Wang 2200T series Mini system, and they had a Commodore PET over there too, with a little chiclet keyboard on it. And basically, I traded typing in code on punch cards with the TA there was the college kid that was working in the summer. He would teach me coding if I would sit there in front of the IBM punch machine and punch cards for him. So that worked out pretty well. Learned a ton of BASIC. My folks thought that was pretty cool that I was doing computer stuff. We went up to the States and what would that be? Probably 78 or 79. And I vividly remember my mom and dad sitting in Sarasota, Florida at the computer store there with a pile of American Express traveler's checks, signing traveler's checks to buy an Apple II. And so we bought an Apple II. We took it back over to my grandmother's house in Sarasota, sat down, and I think we spent a week cussing at the tape drive.
This was very early days. Was this like in about 78 or 79 then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And my dad finally turned around and said, enough of this nonsense. We went back over to the computer store and they spent more American Express check writing session and bought a freaking floppy drive. And then when he saw the price of single density, single-sided, 5 1/4 inch floppy drive, I think it was like $80 for a box of 10 or something.
Yeah.
We get home and we get back to my grandmother's house. My dad takes one drive out, discount, and goes, this is yours. You F it up, you're not getting another one. I relatively quickly figured out that I could take a hole punch and punch a hole and make it a double-sided floppy drive. Now I have twice the capacity. My dad spent a lot of time with me as a kid teaching me digital electronics. We had a bunch of Heathkit prototype systems. And so we did a bunch of stuff with that. That was a lot of fun. I'm going through Scientific American and I see this advert for this ZX80 kit. And I had saved up a bucket of money, you know, a couple $100 back then to a kid is a bucket of money. And went down to the post office, got a US postal money order, put it in an envelope, put a ton of stamps on it, and shipped it off to the UK. So several months later, I'd pretty much forgotten about it and figured it was a scam or something, and I lost my money. And one day I got this box in the mail of this ZX80 kit. And that was a hoot. I still have that machine. Put it in, and it still works. And so I sat there and built it and started learning how to use it. Then the ZX81 came out and I bought that and built it. Actually, I bought several of those and built those. And did a lot of stuff with them. Did a lot of hardware work with them, did a lot of software. Mostly everything in assembly, just because on the ZX80, you know, what did we have? 1K, 2K, I forget exactly how much RAM, but there was virtually no RAM to do anything. So if you wanted to do anything efficient, you had to do it in assembly. Unlike today, where you can write in assembly, and if it doesn't fit, just throw more RAM at it, and it's not a big deal, right? We forget how to optimize our code, but that's a rant when there's enough scotch around. So yeah, we had in our house in Central America, we had an Apple, we had a ZX80, ZX81. We got a VIC-20 a little bit later. When we came stateside, we got a C64. I worked for a computer store in high school, so I got to lug home a C64 portable. If you call it a portable, it's more like a suitcase.
Which store did you work at here in town?
Pardon?
Which store did you work at?
Oh,
this is in Albuquerque?
Yeah, this is in Albuquerque. So over off of San Mateo and Manal, there's a guy named Dan Hewlett that had Hewlett Computers.
Oh, that one I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, I mean this was literally in the mid 80s.
Yeah, I lived here in the mid 80s. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And then I went down the street to by San Mateo, just across the street from where Tartaglia Flowers used to be. And I worked for what was that? Something software, exclusive software, or a little software shop. There's a mom and pop software shop right there on San Mateo. And I worked there for a while. And then I later worked with Joe Tronovich when he had Computer Corner many
Sure.
years
Yeah.
later.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I worked at Hewitt Computers. Worked at a couple other little computer shops around town. We were selling C64s and.
Did you ever work at University Computers? Do you remember that place over there on University, if you can believe it?
No, I never worked there.
No. Okay.
There was another place that was on the knoll south or west of San Mateo, and I can't remember the name of it, but we sold Olivetti M20s or whatever they were, I think, PCs. We sold several other machines and a lot of basically early clones. Back in the Canal Zone, we built our own modem. We took a Radio Shack amplifier, little audio amplifier, and I alligator clipped that onto the mic and earphone pieces. So you took an old telephone. Well, everybody here is old enough. You can unscrew the caps from the phone, right? You pull the elements out and alligator clip onto them. And I could literally sit there on the phone and call my friend Scott Shaw up and say, "You ready? Yep. Okay. Go ahead and press load now." And then I would flip on and I would press save. And we could tell by the jiggly bars on the screen where I had to adjust the volume. And we would send the freaking audio over the phone lines and be able to transfer files back and forth. It was definitely a poor man's or a poor kid's modem, right? But hey, you look at the telephone system, the fidelity of the phone system easily handled that audio signal. So that was a lot of fun. I built a
Hey John, just to make a quick statement. So our meetings, they last 2 hours and it ends in about 5 minutes. And usually we have like a last minute, 5-minute roundup or close up. But hopefully you can join us again. And since you live right next to Ryan and I, like I think within a mile.
I'm at Wyoming and Academy.
Yeah, that's where we are too.
Okay.
So you live right behind the Whole Foods, which is where Ryan lives.
Yeah.
And anyway, I'm giving away all this information. Do you want my social security number? Just let me know.
That's all right. Ryan, I live on Bear Canyon.
Oh.
Yeah, so do I.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God.
Maybe I can walk up the street.
Put
your hand out the window.
It's on the west one.
Okay, I'm all the way up on the east one.
There you go.
Crazy. Okay, that? We'll get together.
Yeah.
But what do we have to? Thanks for talking. What do we have to wrap
sorry
up?
about that.
Oh no, great! It's awesome that you were able to join us. I know you just landed in like half an hour ago or something, an hour ago. So.
Yeah, John, I want to hear more about this emergency room stuff running on the 2068. So you're gonna have to come back and tell us about that. And also, Carl has spoken very highly of you and of the work that you guys did together, just in terms of projects, back then. And so I would love to get you and Carl on the same, the same session and do some geeking out, as it were. I think it'll be fun. It'll be very fun. And I was just messaging Adam. I want to see if we can get Dan to join us to talk about the emergency room stuff, because you blew my mind when you said that. Because that's just not something I'd seen some other stuff similar, but that was over the top. So to Adam,
it's
No, I just shared.
Mexico is
So that's me as a senior in high school.
With two 2068s.
Yep.
And 2 monitors.
Yep.
Is that a disk drive system as well?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. John, you're making my day here.
I actually built a Winchester hard drive interface for the Sinclair.
Oh, John, yeah, you have to come back. We're just gonna have to talk.
And you notice I got a specky poster on the screen on the wall up here.
Oh, behind you?
Yeah.
And wow.
Yes, Adam. That's Del Norte. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's right up the street, so I get it. Yeah. I went to Cibola.
Yeah. And you got your little 2068 manual open. Clearly, I mean, this is obviously a post photo, but still, that is awesome, John.
This picture, just to fill it in for 3 seconds, and I'll stop.
Yeah, go
wasting
ahead.
my time. For 3 seconds. So when the when the movie War Games came out, the Albuquerque Journal came over and did a big spread interview on me and a couple of other hackers. I think Carl was part of that spread. And it was all about, gee, what is this whole computer hacker thing? What's going on? And parents and the ethics of it and all sorts of interesting things. I mean, it was literally like an entire, it wasn't just a couple of little column inches. It was a full above the fold spread story, which was kind of fun. And they grabbed this picture back when I had hair of me doing a bunch of stuff. So yeah. And what's kind of funny, just to fast forward, today my day job is cybersecurity. So,
very nice. Oh, so John, since you're new, and other folks, who may be watching this are new, one of the biggest inspirations for me in terms of doing what I've been doing for, I think 8 or 9 years now, is tracking down newsletters, media, magazines, whatever I can find, people, and trying to document that, right? Trying to preserve our history, right? Because all the other home computers, the Apple II, the Apple folks, the Atari folks, everybody else, they have massive websites back in 10 years ago, and we did not. We had some small websites, and back then I discovered that the sort of the Timex world, the folks who were really enthusiastic about it, they really stuck with it for a long time. Like there was a print newsletter that its last issue came out in 2002 or something. I can't remember the exact date, but it really struck me as crazy. And then I guess everybody sort of switched over to Yahoo groups, but getting this kind of information preserved, right? And there's a bunch of folks on the meeting today who have been active since the 80s, right? I'll just call out a couple of folks: Jeff, Keith, Ryan, you, John. I know Mike. I know Gustavo, Jeff K. Just off the top of my head, these are all names that I recognize from reading them in newsletters and stuff. And so this just makes my heart go pitter patter when you come up with wild crazy stories. And Willie, let me not forget Willie. Willie's been active for a very long time.
I mean, I got a stack of syntaxes still sitting in boxes at my folks' house.
Exactly.
And Sync magazines.
Right. This is the exact thing that I had hoped would happen. Jeff developing new hardware. There's some other folks developing new hardware. Mike trying to make a serial board in the year 2023 for a computer that came out 40 years ago and was discontinued, less than 6 months later. It's that kind of thing that I never imagined would happen when I started doing this. I was like, if 2 or 3 people find my website useful, that's a wild success. So this is, an obscene success, I guess.
Hey, David, I have a question. I think I've asked this before, but how many total 2068s were sold here in America?
No clue.
No clue. Okay.
No
good
clue
answer.
whatsoever. I've heard
more than
10,000.
100,000.
I have seen, numbers that suggest a production run of 150,000.
Okay.
But I don't know. Mike just asked in chat how
Hey, David,
Yes.
do we know how many, or maybe just within our group,
Yeah.
how many of us started on a 81 or 1000?
I think the vast majority of folks started on an 81 or a 1000. Like there were not a lot of newcomers.
Yeah. So my theory with there is that once the 2068 came out, all of us were ready. And
Yep.
we snapped it up. It
Yep.
didn't need to be on the market long because we bought it right away. And that's why there were a bunch of people who had it, because they already had the previous machine.
And that's exactly what, all the newsletters indicate, right? The user group newsletters and stuff, they're all like, we know what's coming. There was all this excitement in 1983, and people were really, really anxious for it to come out. And so when it did finally come out,
Well, yeah, I mean, I think as soon as I bought my 81, the Spectrum was out, and you're like,
yes, it was.
Well, this is going to get here eventually.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, this has been an obscene success. This is why I love doing these meetings, because I get to talk to y'all and hear your stories, and it's always entertaining and it's always fun. Our next meeting, before Adam prompts me, our next meeting is Monday, August. Looks like August 7th, because that's the first Monday of August. So slightly more than 2 weeks, I think, maybe about 3 weeks. Don't have anything lined up for then, but my guess is that a lot of stuff will fall out of the air. And John, I sincerely hope. Oh wait, John, you're holding something up. Let me spotlight you. Oh, look at John's microdrive. Exactly.
Now we are jealous.
Now exactly. Oh, wait, what's nice? Very nice, John.
I have like 6 of them.
Oh, that's crazy.
Do they work? Out of curiosity, do they?
Yeah, they work. I refelted them about a year or so ago.
I know you also said you have some 8-inch floppy drives that you use with your your
CPM
computers from the
machines.
70s. So
Yeah, I have a
S100s.
Vector Graphics S100 bus machine that still boots up CPM. Still got Turbo Pascal for it. Yeah, lots of fun.
Cool.
WordStar, I think, might still work.
And Rui, you just shared a picture in the chat, and I want to know more about that. Yes, please talk about this next time that you're able to attend. Tell us exactly what that circuit board is. It looks very intriguing. I want to know what those. I mean, I recognize some of the parts, but I want to know what that thing is. And I can see everybody's staring into the chat.
I'm just like, dang,
Craning their necks.
I'm trying to figure out what it is real quick.
So I just want to thank y'all for, coming and sticking with this and coming every 2 weeks or so. This is one of my favorite things to do.
Thank you, David.
Oh, real quick, Mike, you had asked how the site is supported. It's supported by me and donations from a bunch of wonderful folks. If you go to the website, there's a little option, a GoFundMe option in the lower left corner, I think. And if you want to help defray the costs of hosting and paying for shipping of tapes, boxes of tapes, that's where a lot of money goes. I won't turn it down.
I shoved you. So when Andrew Adam introduced me, I was like, oh, cool. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
yes. Thank you, John. Yes. You did a big donation. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your, support, and I appreciate that you guys just come and keep me entertained. That's what this is all about, is keeping me entertained. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a good, remainder or something. Go outside and get some sun.
Here, everybody.
I love
Everybody.
Bye.